Hello, everybody. This is Empty Turtle. We got a good one for you today. I'm here with Dr. David Jubb, and this is jubbtalk. I hope our audience listening is having an amazing day. And Dr. Jubb, could you please say hello?
G'day, mate. Really great to talk about what our show's about.
And that's language and brain functions.
Well, that's a pretty good topic. Language, brain function. Yeah. Let's see. One thing I could just ask you. I'm talking, right, and you're listening, and is it that I'm using muscles, of course, of my mouth, and tongue and things, right?
And I'm using my ear muscles to listen.
Well, in fact, no muscle is actually used in the ear to listen, because you have a mirror motor neuron, which allows you to be able to, imitate. If you don't have degrees of autism, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But you've got a mirror motor neuron, and it's just behind the back of the eyes, mate, and it's like the back of the chiasm. The optic chiasm is sort of really behind the back of your eyes.
Okay, the optic chiasm.
Yeah, right.
I'm having a chiasm just thinking about it.
Yeah, I know. You've got a blood-brain barrier there, sort of like, and it actually has to protect, tiny small particles only to get up there in your brain.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Only 1 in 222 particles of albumin, which is albumin's pretty small. It's only small enough, actually, to get nutrition up into your brain, and also waste. Yes, cell waste away.
How does our brain eat that nutrition? Do they absorb it?
Well, that's interesting, because like a lot of investigation shows that what somebody eats, it just kind of it just doesn't account for all the calories and the energy that's needed to run a body.
No, I get that.
Well, Stanley Myers was a bloke, and he got a vehicle, like people did, to run on water. I mean, we're talking about clean energy.
You mean he had a people car?
Yeah, he had a car that ran on water.
Wow.
You see? Yeah. There was a judge that shut it down privately, like a wrongdoer.
What's this guy's name? Stephen Meyer?
Yeah, Stephen, and then he had a twin.
And he invented a car that ran on water.
Yeah.
All right, people, y'all do your research, look it up, because we need water cars.
Well, you and I, we have clean energy.
I want to drive on the ocean.
Yeah, when you've got like both of your hemispheres cycling together, right? And that is when you're in an integrated state, or things that are going on, have allowed you to remained integrated.
Okay.
So integration is really like a flow between the parts. That's what that means. It's sort of, yeah.
I think they should change DEI, the I for inclusion. I think they should change the I for integration. Thank you very much.
Artificial integration. In intelligence, of course, because intelligence is the ability you and I have to go beyond any prefix set pattern of response to be able to have survived. Yes? Right. Religion is, of course, like, which we listened to the last shows, sort of like the submission to authority for the sake of certainty. You see, so in this circumstance, we just talked about, clean energy was just shut down because some bloke reckoned that, water wasn't a better fuel.
Let me ask you, is religion in our world cortisol in the brain world?
Control. My teacher, Cloud, 2 children, in the Toltec tradition, taught that the most violent thing that Well, like, yeah, I was surprised. You said the most violent. It's like, whoa, thing that anybody does to themselves is to control themselves.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So I need to not control myself.
Well, you better motivate. You're motivated. No, you don't have to control anything. I wish you could. No, but no, your motivation is sort of more about learning, growth, acknowledgement, achievement, and things. Sort of like a built-in generator inside yourself, and it's
true.
not into
If only that were true.
positive or negative keta. You see.
Okay, so language and brain function.
Yeah.
Does language give away our brain function?
Language expresses itself from integration. It expresses itself from the behavior of congruence. It expresses itself from the behavior of, you and I being associated to some subject matter.
Okay. And what about, so we got our brain function, our inner dialogue, then our outer dialogue, right? From the brain to the world. Our brain, inner dialogue, outer dialogue. And that's how we communicate our beautiful ideas with each other and invent wonderful things and expand into the future, right?
Okay, so we're talking about a spontaneous creative intelligence, which is
Thank you.
the primary principle of the Toltecs. But also coming back just a tiny bit, the control thing really was because I dissociated in myself from what I should get done or something, and I got distracted by lots of things, and I saw that lots of things was distracting me. And then the other control thing that I did would have been, I interrogated something part that would cause some bit of myself to have felt small, and then the other thing that I did was to have felt, if I don't do this, if I should or I have to, and it's like these are things that are more intimidating. Those are the four forms of control, basic. But as you just said, like, let's see, I think the last thing you said was that basically people listening could know there's a map. That's right, of reality, and it's not reality, of course, as you said. It's a map, and it can be an approximate, hopefully an enriched, embellished map versus one that's not too embellished or enriched. But it is a map, and we get a map because we have a process in our brain, our behaviour, that's about generalising. And that's one sort of a thing that you'd have to put into the mathematical equation. The other one is that you have to have deleted a lot of information, of course, to have come up with something, because consciousness itself is only 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information at any one period of time. So far we've got 2 processes. We've talked about one more, and that is that you have to have constructed things. So you've generalised, deleted, and constructed. These are 3 sort of brain processes that allow you or I or anybody else to sort of have a map, but the map, like we said just then, like you were saying, could be something which is about flow, could be you being more present because of the way that you're behaving.
Well, yeah, not only our language. Our language gives away what our brain is thinking. Body language, body language.
Well, interesting, because non-verbal is something which is 90% of a communication.
Really?
And it changes the way some inflectedness and things like that and it causes sort of bifurcation moments, which bifurcation moments are sort of when you've got something coming to begin and come from something else, like the sound pop, or like click, zip, or or ka-jump. It's like something has gone in, or whoop whoop. You need to do something. So these are examples of onomatopoeias.
Onomatopoeia. I like it.
Onomatopoeia is like
Wow.
That's an onomatopoeia. Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Onomatopoeias are things which in our behaviour cause like bifurcation moments and things like this, because basically you could say that people who are making decisions really well, they are having access to their feeling, their kinesthetic self, then their auditory self, then their visual self, Yeah, but if you have the criminal conversion of the title of yourself so that you're not a man but you're the son of a purr, for instance, then and you didn't know it, but it's like a trickery going on, sort of like with words, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And there's phonological ambiguities in some way, because, like, if I said America, for instance, somebody would think, oh, that's from the land, that's one definition. A republic, constitutional government sort of thing, that's another definition. And another definition, which is the primary definition, which people could be thinking, is a corporation itself only. And that meaning, like in its all caps self, a corporation which is owned by private people in a faraway land, you know, and this is sort of like problematic for us, basically. But you just only say that we've got free and clean energy, and where two light waves are phase conjugated and played against each other, they're not exactly equal at all, and then something is left over. It's called a residuum, and that residuum gets added up, and this is what is collected to make free energy, or 0 point energy comes from it. But you and I, we have a static B field and a radiant energetic dynamo within our mitochondria, and you've got zero emissions like from that. Of course, in the past, red mercury was so sought after and kept precious because it was used in all the devices and things.
Red
and
mercury?
Blue dye. These were things which was the most expensive types of ingredients that were made or passed. But yeah, the red mercury was used for more free energy device and things. Viama, an inverse gravitational craft, of course, flown via remote control, go back into the 1600s and 1800s into India, of course, which most people, if you open source, you can see these things. But you could really read about that or more, a bit more, for people interested in the path of hollow bones by going to jubbtalk.com.
That's amazing.
Inverse gravitational remote control we're talking about. But
we don't have
Toyota, in this golden age, well, you've got Toyota injecting water into the engine as a solution. It cools via the water itself, and they're very light engines, like radical, you see.
I like Toyota.
And did a bloke not run a car like we started off talking a bit about at the beginning across America on a water-filled cell, which really only had used about 4 litres of water or something. It was really not much.
Right?
Yeah. And it did 45 kilometres per litre or something. But a court as recent as 1996, right, froze that we started to talk a little bit about. But the whole free energy movement was shut down there, under Vice Admiral Corsi. And that Vice Admiral we call it sort of run for the crown. And Sibikawa, who's into oil, but how do you meter water, which he's got free energy, just to, you can use this, see. So that bloke said, oh, no, you can't get hydrogen from water, that's wrong. And it doesn't burn hotter than carbon, that's wrong. It's just such a lying, crazy muck, right?
Well, here's what's going to happen.
But anyway.
We're going to have water vehicles, and guess what? Then they're going to make it hard to get water.
Well, they, like you said, really is like only Toyota getting that, technology and using it a bit. But who's behind that? It's an acronym, for something else that's American. But if a bloke ran a car across America where water was just, and deep into this story, like we've got patents sort of approved by, a patent office which is owned also privately by Serco, you see. You've got Stanley, of course, like in the story there, you've got his twin and Stan and Steve, and so you've got 200,000 others who were waiting in line for a patent, and he just gets his patent, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
Patent.
Well, it's just like I said, what's going on there, you see. It was a usual range of things going on there, but suddenly, he's the gate's been changed for him. It's like a soaring horse suddenly was used, which is criminal. It's obvious that you've got some criminal type of intent, but especially when you look at like that combustion is cleaner and it's much more fuel efficient and quickly approved. You've got all sorts of things going on where this bloke sort of works with NASA and other things. All shoots up, of course. There's a battle going on during this period of time, 1992, and Stan, of course, is looking at the oil crisis, and he sort of built a machine to really run just so fantastic off magnetrolysis, which is hydrogen, like we were talking about a little bit at the beginning, which is splitting itself.
Stanley Meyer or Stephen Meyer?
They're twins.
Okay.
Yeah, see, actually only one survives. We saw a time, of course, which really others are looking at a bit. In 1996, you've got a really serious turn of all stymiedness going on, right? You got in Ohio a bull dust inspector, that's one thing. And so these are private, personal things where someone got in the way where everyone is, but it's shut down, and it's really pretty familiar. And where would you go to start? Because that's just like a metaphor relative, isn't it? So, why would you want to pick on any one of this? But if you could look at the claims, of course, which is all put together, it's sort of not too unusual, but you've really got business and the usefulness of hydrogen, which is injected by smart injection. How fantastic. I mean, 1998, you really got a restaurant where the bloke, he sips on a cranberry juice and suddenly, wham, bam, he was dead. It's a natural death, of course, but you've got Belgian business people all just hovering in there, at the time. Yeah?
Yeah.
Today, of course, you've got Toyota, and that's what they're doing. I mean, I think that it's really some sort of shame going on a bit there, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Could things be better?
Yeah.
But anyway, so one of the things that we just started out talking about was whole brain functioning, which we said that if you're associated, of course, like in the present, you're getting a bigger score of your, receptivity, yeah?
All right.
And so one part of that would be certainly present your verb tense and the tense that's used and what posture more or less somebody has, because if you're like more forward and you're more like with your shoulders back, a little bit of an arch in your back and this sort of thing, you're showing yourself to be more present. And studies show that you can know where the trajectory of a ball is more in this posture than you can in any other posture. It's sort of like a posture of a neural efficiency itself.
Okay.
But what happens when somebody's head is so far forward, right, that the posture is, oh my God, I have to carry my head.
Mm-hmm.
And now, how heavy is most people say it's like could be 40 pounds, I'm not sure, like really pretty heavy, isn't it?
I think I'm pushing 80.
Yeah. Okay, you have a big head. So you obviously have to have kept your head relatively within your spine.
I have strong neck muscles.
And so it's basic that somebody's associated, they're more present tense orientated, and they look like this, and you can hear it where their verb tense is, and also to their frequency of accessing cues, which those accessing cues are sort of little movements which are triggering and anchored states which cause an accessing of that state.
Okay.
But basically we just come back full circle to the things we said was that if you frame things positively, of course, you're in your frontal cortex because there is a septal region which fires and it opens up your frontal cortex. And if you're in aversion, it shuts that down.
Really?
Yeah, so that's amygdala. The amygdala, if you've got your hands, and imagine that's your cortex, and then you sweep them around and you come down underneath and you see your fingertips.
Yeah.
Those fingertips that you can see coming close together, which you've got like two hemispheres of your brain, right? And that hemisphere comes around and where you collect with your fingers underneath as you sweep both fingers around in the air.
And then underneath in the crevice.
Right now, that rim of your fingers is the amygdala, and it fits to a brain stem. And that amygdala, when it fires, it neurologically inhibits the septal region, which is the region which connects your frontal cortex with your emotion and your whole brain, matter of fact. So the frontal cortex primarily connects to the whole brain from the front to the back through the left hemisphere primarily, and the right hemisphere always is more connected more to internal milieu. And so, like, well, the world around you and I, it's really because you and I, we've got ability to be able to have motor movement and patterned motor movement, and this is a left hemisphere process which engages more our connection with the outside world. The right hemisphere more is connected internally, far more to to the internal milieu, and it's the left brain bundle always connects to the front and the back of the brain, whereas the right forebrain bundle always connects much more to the internal milieu of ourselves. And you've got a difference in sort of structure. So the left hemisphere is sort of very grey, and the right hemisphere's like got a lot of white matter, and the grey sort of goes on off, right?
Okay.
It's a digital processing,
Ooh.
and the right hemisphere is sort of analogical processing. Yeah.
So that the right hemisphere is analogical?
Analogical.
Okay, that's a lot cheaper.
Right, in memory.
Than the digital.
Right. So memory of speech is engaged more in our left hemisphere. A visual memory, for instance, is going to be more in the right hemisphere, the back of the brain, in your occipital lobe. So when you use your brain, like you go kinesthetic, auditory, visual with your language and the things that you're listening to, right, you've got a patterning of more whole brain functioning versus somebody who's just going, getting, having, doing and feeling, and they're only ever giving you a representation of a feeling sense, but they don't ever exit or access information from auditory, nor do they ever exit or access information visually. And this is called a stuck state. Where somebody's in a stuck state, you could see because they're not making decisions, they procrastinate a lot. They have a lot of illiterate language, and they fill the space with this because it's controlling of everyone and themselves by being dissociated, like we started to talk about full circle, and then we said the other one was distracting, and then the other one was like my interrogatedness of myself, or the other one would be inside myself sort of intimidatedness. I mean, those things sort of are controlly.
It's interesting. Isn't it funny how our brain looks very similar to our butt, right? It's just like they're reverse, right? It's pretty amazing, I think.
Oh, well, in an ear, like you're pointing out, you can see the whole body, or in an eye, or in a bone, and every single organ is an arrested embryological developmental stage. You see.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so pressure and things caused it to finally complete where its differentiation was, where it was within a 4D printing, you see.
Well, I think humans are made in a way where they're very efficient, and maybe they just didn't want to be more creative for the butt, because I'm sure the brain came before the butt.
Well, when you can look at the lips, you can see things that relate to your intestine. When you look at your eyes, you can see things that relate to your stomach and your digestive tract. And when you look at the physiognomy of for instance, like let's see. Well, the face of ease is about eternity more, and more like a sage, versus the face of someone else, which you would always see creased really, and you'd often, always, never not, but the brows would be furrowed like crazy.
Like
and
mine.
Well, you've got next to not too many wrinkles. I don't know if that's just genetic or not, but it's just something like have saved you. I don't know, genetic wise. But well, anybody can screw their face up. But it is interesting that where somebody's sort of pleasant, you'll notice if they could look at your your lips, you'll see that they turn up. And then, like, most people's lips, they're turned down. Like, your face got frozen, you see. You got to have a look in the mirror. But you could look really mean as cat poop sort of thing.
Well, the thing is, right, I'm extremely humble, and I don't like to show it. So sometimes I'll go take it too far.
Well,
Why not?
but it's true that, like, in your nose, you can see, like, your whole self. In your face, like, in the head, like you're pointing out, you can see the whole body. That's right. So in a bone, like your right metacarpal on your right in your hand, that could be red, and you could feel where congestion is in the whole body, all the way along that bone. Because why? Well, because when you were only 6 cells and every cell grew from every other cell, everything is still connected to where it came from. And even though, like, the arm separated out and became a limb, it actually, like the forearm, part of it grew out of the cells that occupy your liver.
Like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
There is an actual connection that's more through the B field, right? Through resonance, cavity resonance, and signature, and those are things which is more modern in our insight into how cells communicate or how memory is stored, like in the tissue protoplasm of the brain.
I would imagine, since we covered that cells are conscious, or each individual cell's conscious, I would imagine that they talk to each other. There might be some kind of...
We could blow our listeners' mind a little more. Could you imagine that a cell is individually composed of individual life colloid?
Oh my God!
Okay, so this is what we're talking about Mexico City, you see, and that actually does work, mechanical work, like life colloid, like ubiquitin 1, 2, and 3, assist to cause, DNA repair and these sorts of things, you see.
I think if they spoke English, we might understand them.
Well, how do you describe, let's say, someone who, like, it comes from a nation which still has on the books that you could die from arachnophobia?
What's arachnophobia? Is that a fear of spiders?
Well, it's like how a huge elephant as big as yourself could be afraid of a spider, you see?
Well, I mean, it's all in the mind.
Yeah, but, like, don't you think a big elephant like yourself could be afraid of a spider? That's what I'm talking about.
Of course. Well, absolutely.
Well, but yeah, then Richard the Lionheart must be a lot, because it's sort of like going grrr, but then going ouch at the same time, you see.
Okay.
It's Richard the Lionheart sort of thing. Okay. What about the Tin Man? That's a good one.
The Tin Man?
Yeah, the tax identification number.
I can't relate to
It's a Tin Man, yeah. That story was sort of has got a...
Doesn't have a heart.
Yeah, that's your straw man.
No, that's Tin Man.
No, but that is your straw man. I mean, you're all...
Have a brain.
But that's called a civilita mortis, or it could also be an atlaticus or a phyllis nillus before the court.
No,
and if you didn't know that,
the
bid bond is yours, and that's the only one where you're the grand whore, you see. And so that pays the bill. Otherwise, if you didn't do that, your body got taken away.
How does a duck pay the bill?
Yeah, it's interesting. See, that's an example of a phonological ambiguity.
What?
Yeah, duck. You have to duck.
Ooh.
Yeah,
okay.
But what if I said you have to feel light in your mind to see?
Well, I can do that easy.
Yeah, but you'd have to feel light to see, right?
I can feel light right now.
But I mean, okay. But light could be flooding into corridors, right?
Sure.
And I open those corridors up?
Yeah.
But, okay, so
they'll light them up.
Where conflictedness was, it sort of could be grown back up again, so that integration, associatedness, and congruence was, or is, and this is sort of like a smart contract, you see. Yeah.
Okay.
So what about smart contracts? I mean, you couldn't have criminal conversion, like you'd have to have man or woman,
right? Why can't contracts use layman terms?
Yeah, or
easy words.
Yeah, no, they are.
Are they?
Because a kangaroo is put into the same category as living.
A kangaroo in court.
Well, no, kangaroos are living, I'm saying, versus, alphabet soup land.
Do we have any animals that are not living?
Well, a creature of our mind.
Okay.
Exactly. A creature of our mind.
That are not living.
What's a creature of our mind? How about Casper the Friendly Ghost?
I like Casper. He's
what
a nice
about
guy.
The U.S. Corpse?
Oh, you mean core? corporation?
Well, I just mean corporation, period.
U.S. corporation. Let me tell you something. If we're going to be surrounded by corporations, at least I'm working for the U.S. corporation, the best one out there, right? Right?
A best one could be just like what happened in El Salvador, of course, right?
Oh,
There were
go on.
72,000 young boys all rounded up. You could look at that.
Yeah.
And that bloke that did that, he was trained by the WEF.
Who's the
So,
one?
do you have a feeling that something's going on with a BC bond like being stolen and the bonds that's used and then the security, because every single one of these people could have their bid bond, they ask for that, and
Hold
they
on,
have a
hold
right
on.
for it.
Real
you see?
quick. This really did happen within the last couple of years, maybe. They built a brand new, huge prison in El Salvador and then filled it up. And I'm
it's a
sure
bit of a
that might be a
backstory.
good thing for the country.
Oh, well, you looking
You
to
know?
see these things are open
But
sourceable.
the way you explain it, it's very interesting.
Yeah, if you go to argue, you go to jail, you see.
What?
It's like money that CB Cower, which is a criminal banking cartel of one world order, really,
CB
is
Cower?
after the debt. And it's just a really bit of a dog and pony show, like for Trump or anyone, showing all what's covered up. But the criminal conversion of the title, you see, to present evidence, is sort of as a cloak and dagger style of criminal banking cartel of a one world order, where it's just customer profiling everybody into its own zip, and that's a corpse. And you're not
codes.
born in a corpse, born from a corpse. No, you're not. You're born from the land. And you can be only of or at or in, and that's wrong. That's a fiction only, you see, in language. So that's not too much a good smart contract, because you'd have to have man there, because otherwise then you could have alphabet soup land, and a smart contract has to know the difference between the two, and it does, you see, because it's a title. You see, and it's listed under title. It's what your tool of a tie is. But if I took your tool of a tie away and I didn't know you had a tool of a tie, and I just said you're an ant, like you're a deaf-ended one, or you're to be commie battered, a commie battered ant, or let's see,
ant.
I took your claim and I just said it was a friggin' commie plaint. Would you like that? No, you wouldn't, I don't think. But your intellectual property really is your exemption right there where this is, and large corporations have just stolen that, and this is what criminal banking cartel of a one world order really is. It's a guild that's really taken away your deduction, which you have, you see, and the guild on sells that exemption. It's on the private side, and the guild really filed like their own 1096 sort of form tax, return, and showed that prepaid account, and so the prepaid interest in the guild returns it all back to be charged. And so to grant a title of nobility, that's where it all started, and that's forbidden. And somebody had a licentiousness to jump into there behind the scene as the money mechanics and turn you into the son of a purr, or an ant that was for commie batting, or a claim which you really have, which is supposed to be on the right side of the court, because that's you as a man, is only be put onto the left, you see. And so the crime is really tied to the U.S. corpse as a criminal banking cartel of a one world order system, because you've got a stockholders, and that stockholder in the the corrections and corporation of America, the CAA, and that the CCA, they're all sort of corporation but they're not kind of maybe even corporations. Some of it, like the guild isn't a corporation, you see. So CB Cower holders are licensed to subsidise all through privatisation, and so that's all done by bonds, like I was saying just then before. The bid bond is one for you, because it's got the one there that says Grant Hoare, and Grant Hoare is like you, which is the trust, versus like you're just some corporate, corporateness. So a trust is higher than a corporation. And everybody is under a trust, and then everybody's under a corporation. But you see, are you? I mean, no, but yes, but no, you see, because if you were on top of it, then you would have the chain of command where you've sat and you've seen it sat, and all the laws have been created, and it came from, we're the people, you see, who sit above the Legislative Assembly. But where that's Article 3 and Article 4 court, because you're just talking about what's over a contract. And in other words, like if you have a system and that system has caused you to have taken your right away because they've just said you're a drive whore, that's your license. And that license is you're just using it actually, but you're not a drive whore. That's not your occupation. And that's not an ID proper, is it? Because you're only somebody who's an employee. And so these things are a bit trickery going on behind the scene. But it's certain that 72,000 people were all rounded up, and that was mass punishment. I mean, these things never could be seen and considered in a modern day, but that's a bloke that's sort of WEF trained, right? And so behind the scene, it's just said that you've got a claim, of course, but you didn't know that that bid bond is yours. Somebody else took it and they did that to you. Why? Because they just love it. Why? Because you've abandoned the claim, you see. And if you've abandoned the claim, you don't tell me that actually it's going to get a lot more money. Yes, it does. And it doesn't ever get settled. But that's sort of another sort of story a little bit. But you've got service fees, bundled, pooled, clogged. Got contraband at the courthouse because that's, an adverse counterclaim, you see. And it's all under a dead man's statue. And you're not under a dead man's statue. What are you talking about? So let me just ask you.
Before we get into the dead man's statue, let's take a break right quick. We'll be back before you know it. Guess what? We're back, and you didn't even know we were gone. Look at that.
Well, it's an amazing thing because, like, most people would, like their story is about an argument that they have, isn't it? And they're so goaded to argue. And guess what? They've been sort of drafted to perform, and the performance is sort of your fiction. But the thing that you need to do is to get the bid bond that's yours and pay that tax and have the tax assessed. So that's the treasurer. She can only do, or he can only do his job that you in this system could have assessed the tax. And now you've got a tax exemption. You're the only one that could pay the tax. And so, to be kind and to be gentle where everything is, it's what you have to do is to absolutely, in this system that's set up. And like in a new system, we're going to talk about that in a moment. But like, look, you ought to have had the tax assessed. And because you didn't, it's like, that's right. See, so this is part of the problem, you see. But don't tell me that someone doesn't have all the books, and that's not quite right of a system that you could see. It's sort of really something which could be fixed up and has to be. But basically what we just have said, mate, is that it's your intellectual property course and it's your exemption, right? And you're the only one who can have this, and you are supposed to do that, like, assess the tax. But like, couldn't that be automatic? And it is in a new reset, you see, because this is the way that somebody then got a lien on your account, and so that you're a debat whore when you're showing up somewhere and you don't know that. But on the criminal investigation system, SIS, which runs out of Bern, it shows you up as a criminal that you haven't connected with the Treasury for the last 3 years. And so straight off the cuff, it's an Atlanticus for sure, standing before the court, second, and Vice Admiralty, of course, you see, because you're only being looked at as a corporate citizen, as something commercial, and that's wrong, you see.
Corporate citizens.
No, yeah, but you see, you're not chattel, and that's the problem where things are. Where somebody's become chattel, they didn't know it, but then their body becomes imprisoned or pridorted. But the guild only on-sells what that exemption is, because behind the scene, the private side, the guild filed like that 1096, like I said, which is IRX tax form, and showing, a prepaid account is existing. And, well, that's by abandonment, though. Someone signed your name by accommodation behind the scene to get all of that prepaid interest, and the guild returns all of that back. And who's being charged, you see, and that's you. And so because you didn't know that, it's like, well, they're going to do it. Why? Well, because they've got licentiousness to do it, and it's just a grant of a title of nobility, which is forbidden, that causes people to get away with whatever that is. It's like, look, there's a crime that's tied to anyone that's under a corpse as a system, because that's fascism outright. You can't mix the living up with the living. And that's what fascism is. When you've got two venues, which you can't have, and that's a new reset, you have to have only a venue from the land. That's it, finished. Because why? Well, because that's somebody's got a claim, yes they do, or no they don't. And I don't feel like there's a man or a woman that say that my claim is untrue. you see, and this is my property, you see. It's my fungible property to protect the value of my signature and all the property that what is, and shouldn't it be that the government is asked to, of course, maximally protect to the maximal capacity that it can whatever your resource is that is your own property, because the definition of government really is that it's only formed to be able to protect private property, you see, and it's your private property. But it's really not good where in the courthouse, which is our public house, which we have common law right, but you didn't know that, and then you suddenly was at a venue and it wasn't coming from the land, it was of or at or in, and bye-bye laws, you see, which these are much lower level of law, you see what I mean? And so you only could hold yourself as a company underneath that as a corporation, you see. But you're assisting the corporation, God help us, by stopping usufructing and things like that. But what about everyone who could just, because of a pocket judgment, have lost equity where they are, and who signed off on things was an infantecedent with an infantecedent with hearsay, and that's Article 1 only, and it's supposed to have an Article 3 or Article 8, verifiedness, because you've got bills of exchange, and now three-party, you see, verification for, and so these are sort of more conditions that relate to the security of payments and things that's like this, you see. But we should be sort of like having a new reset.
Are we screwed? Are we screwed?
It's wrong, you could say, first, to be corrected, that somebody abandoned a claim, and it wasn't that you knew that, so there was no transparency, of course. And those are things that, if somebody doesn't actually settle the debt, which they can, easy, they're going to argue. And this is the most stupidest thing that anybody could have done. But it's stupid because you've gone into fiction, arguing with fiction. And please, I don't have any argument with fiction, you see. Why should you? That fiction is the fiction itself. But it is that you've got a right to where you are, and that only comes from your tool of a tie. If you don't have your tool to get your tie, what property do you have underneath that, you see, because it's all listed, that's supposed to be, you see. But if the French were given something to do, and to fill out and make a code, and they codified the law and they took children away as being property, and it's your proper cup of tea to be able to feel and the joy that your children have to you, that's their proper cup of tea. That's proper tea, you see. So proper tea is your emotion, that's yours to feel. And in a free world, of course, you could imagine that our self-autonomy is the primary thing that most everybody in the world really cares for. And part of the reason why in the Commonwealth countries, basically, are countries and nations which investment has existed. Why? Well, because at least a certain capacity is to be able to have a claim, but not if you're in France. You see, you're under a code, basically. But, let's not pick on anyone, because basic it is that, don't you think that code has come here? It's like, please, it's just like, this is not just anything except what's fictional, and a man and a woman is above that as a chain of command, you see, and that chain of command really does have a Supreme Court, and that's the Supreme Court of we the people, and that has to be selected. You can't have any electedness inside that, because that's a corpse, you see. It's all corpse.
What about appointed? Appointed.
Well, everyone is under oath, no matter what. Yes, they are. You are. And, you're under oath to support and to protect everyone in the state, and certainly government and people and everyone. And nobody should be acting in a manner that's ridiculous. Except a lot of that is sort of a terrorism of its own self. That's wrong, you see, because there's a way for you, if you're spiritual, to straight away seek agreement with your adversary. If you don't do that, you're going to be arguing. Yes, you are. And that's all you're going to ever do. And God help us, that's called groveling. So where you and I, we have politicers. The politicers that are innocent right now, they're seeking agreement, you see, with each other. And then it could be looked at as kind of being bad, but that's wrong, you see, politicers.
Okay, so we are screwed.
No,
No?
Oh no, God help us. We're just talking about actually a reset. Don't tell me that people didn't reset things. What happened when Greece lost all their money?
What happened?
Well, they renegotiated, okay, because the negotiation was terrible. What happened when Iceland, they didn't want to belong to the 2020 club sort of thing and what have you went on, they didn't forfeit all their money. What happened?
They took over their...
No, they hired a policeman, and that policeman investigated and found the criminals. Simple. Police. When you don't do that, is the claim expressed? No. You see what I mean? So claims only happen when it's expressed, and it's sort of really a strange attractor itself. And there's 4 different types in math of strange attractors. But if you could understand that all 4 could be working where something is because it's a strange attractor, it's sort of like something has set its own self up to be resolved. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You see? Yes, it has, because it only can be, because smart contract is the only thing which can do this, which is decentralization, where everyone is under common law in the world and international relations exist, you see, because it's really wrong that 52 billion animals might be just like torched in Australia and torch Australia or torch California and these sorts of things, where dew weapons are being used and this sort of thing, you see.
Well,
so
we do those things because we don't want to be
I wouldn't
unheard.
say that because somebody was rounded up in El Salvador, for instance, because, for instance, like we have only 4% of the population of the world underneath this corporation, but we have 22% of those incarcerated.
It's crazy.
So now you're going to tell me that money is not being made and traded and people just as traded as cattle? It's a bit disgusting because it's from forgery and aggravated sort of burglary, brutalisation, which is treated less than animal stock, which personally, that's cruel outright. But pigs in a slop trough, and a gravy train is there for the few, and it's gravy train which is stopped, you see, for the few. Because why? Well, because it's under a dead man's statute. That's how bad this is. I'm sorry, but it's really terrible. But it's just only a smidgen of the heinous sort of crime that's gone on where in the past, you see. And it's a military-industrial complex. And did you and I select that?
Hell no.
If you were 6 years old and asked to select, I'm positive you'd come up with something excellent.
Sure.
Yeah, you would, because you'd really have your original self there, more sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It really is the capacity that you and I have to really be able to have a better future. But your woman could be knighted, and that's nine-ated. Nine-ated. You're nine-ated.
I thought they were dinged.
Well, when you're 9-8, that's a number, and that's like code, and every number is a code, so it can take you a little time to actually pick up and learn what the code is, but that takes time. But 9-8 is, you're 9-8, you see, versus your 86th.
What's number 111? What's number 111?
It's all to do with getting threed, yeah? But, yeah, you're one. You're one. It means you're one. And so it's sort of like something which relates to a singular event of some kind of thing itself, but it would be that something wants to get kicked off, you see. So these are numbers like 666, things like that are sort of code, you see. And that just is a code that's being used sort of thing, that's all. But for those people in the knowing, they can see, this has a certain number of people that were missing, that were down in mine. That means things to you because you've been trained more to be able to be in a sleeper cell, and those are things which all get triggered because it's just only the papers or something that you saw, and that was being able to be put into that. But if you improvise, of course, and are adaptive and intelligent, you could see that this organisation has had itself to be off terrain and things that's like that. And so, off terrain means just like, guess what? Where is man and woman in the document? That's all. Simple. You see, it's got to have its 4 corners correct, and you can't go off something which doesn't have is in a document. This is a JC quantum law where languaging is in smart contract, and you have to have proper vestibular meta, function or meta programming. So, like you said yesterday in our program more, you move toward what's pleasant and you move away from things. But someone could have been using their vestibular sense mixed up, and so that's not positive inducted currency, which we should have, where everything is asset backed that's raised, and as it's spent, it's equal to the asset, you see, at the end of the year. And how good is this? No debt exists whatsoever, you see. And where nations have had such like this, they grew like wildfire during the time of it, and you did have a renaissance, incredible, you see. But it needs to be sort of understood a little bit more, doesn't it, you see? Because otherwise you've really got various things that's going on, and though you've got copper being mined in 7,000 BC onward in Canada, and where the ice has retreated, you've got a mixture of bitumen and vegetable matter and all of that sort of stuff that's mixed with mineral and improvised really to make these beautiful elastic coverings, which was very popular in the flood. And they made these boats out of reeds, and they were really pretty amazing. And Canada was the place where you could find all this, and it still has this old name, and it was the name on the map a long time ago, you see. Yeah,
I see.
And but then when the Middle East got knocked out because of the flood, it got jumpstart from Canada. And Cana and Canaan was a region, of the Levant, beautiful region where Lebanon was and things, that they all get kicked off there in the cities and things, But it gets jump-started because you've got the originals here with the same language of Greek, you see, and Crete and things like that. And plus, you've got this R1B gene, showing that you've got genetic connections and things like that as well. So there's been a great fusion, actually, of the past, not a great uniformity.
Okay.
See, so the great uniformity meant that you couldn't have even had like an asteroid, which those are things which is trouble from above, and those are things which really could be seen and avoided, because there's always places where things are which is more safe, of course, where things are that's like this. So that was the north, the east, the west, and the south.
The news.
Yeah, instead of the muse. The muse. But they were really good at putting on shows, incredible, and most of these places were ancient ceremonial sites. The cornerstone was changed, and an architect was set to come in, but that's all bull. And these buildings were never, ever, ever built again.
Fascinating. I think humans, we need to study them more. And I think if we do our due diligence and research, I think we'll have it all figured out soon. I'm thinking maybe in the next 10 years, if we study humans, might have it all figured out.
The question, of course, which is about our title and the conversion of your title, I think that probably is our most improvised capacity to adapt ourselves, to have intelligence, to be able to go beyond any prefix set pattern that's happened that's caused the genocide itself, and that is the mechanism as a kill box set up that actually has caused genocide all over. So, but what would be a reason why? And you could tell me, and you could understand it well and truly, because you studied all the different genocides that have occurred, like the Armenian, for instance, or and everyone in America, when you talk to them, they can tell you exactly about the Armenian genocide and also the Bolshevik genocide, a genocide that occurred, in China. You do know, and really it's quite evident, and certainly Pol Pot and how that all happened in the killing fields, you see. So these are things which, of course, in 4026 are all documented well and truly, and it's all just sort of common knowledge. But open sourceable things which exist, somebody, as you said, they could really know where they're going in the spiritual, that we could know more about our past, because if we could know our past, we could sort of know where we're going more. It's really what really should be, because reed boats like we were talking about and floating cities, they were all gorgeous because they actually, the rise and the falling of the water where they were perfect, and they had great protection and these sorts of things from the surrounds, and they adapted hugely to the fluctuations like we talked about with water levels. But it was for me to go back to these old ancient places where these waterways were, and you can see LiDAR and you can see all the rocks as anchors and things like that, which was over these huge places, massive matter of fact, and where structures existed, as islands, and they had made these out of reed. But in the banks cloud showed me of creeks were massive trees, which were so hollow, and it was in a time when, there were just floating reeds and islands, and the islands were sometimes a mile thick or more. I mean, you had soil on top of it and everything, and sometimes like a lake gets buried underneath that. But this is the things which has gone on in the past. I mean, cloud showed me where water had raced at least 1,000 miles an hour across the land, at least a mile high, and had scoured everything back to the rock, the bedrock, you see. So these are forces and things that have gone on, MT. But the more that we can understand that fossilization, things like that could have occurred more in an instant, you see. But you've got a lot of me see 'em, you don't, and that's sort of kind of part of all what this is about, isn't it?
I think so. We're going to have to change the title of this episode from language and brain function to I don't even know what. But it was definitely entertaining. And audience, I hope you got your mind blown a few times, hopefully. There's a lot of good information. And we'll be back. And remember to subscribe. Jub, give us something really good and simple that will brighten our days.
Oh, the definition of playfulness.
Okay.
Would you say, first of all, of course, like playfulness is the primary harmonious ingredient that actually, like in a nest or a family, is the very function of harmoniousness, is playfulness. Would you say playfulness is first like the state where people are most open?
I would say yes, and it's also a great way to start your day.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, do you have a feeling that playfulness, of course, well, the definition of it is it's activity and state of mind which is beyond present time, and so it's really any state of mind which is beyond present time. You see, and so timelessness, as you're in this moment, you're in this moment forever. You see, yes, and more timelessness is you being more with perfect detachment and not being attached to gross things more, but ever being more enlightened and coming light more to the altar of your own self, and this is your own threshold. So playfulness, I think, sort of, because as you were saying, it's the state of our most openness, and then we added a bit, of course, to this, that it's really our harmoniousness as well. And one more thing is only about this, and that's that in support of it, of course, is that it's the omega, that's the dog in a pack, for instance, that truly creates harmony. And when the omega is gone, it's, oh my God, see, the pack is in quite disarray. But where alpha is missing and it comes back, or even time is gone, pack is sort of still functional quite, but certain it is when the omega is gone, it's like, you see, this is really the primary thing. Anyway, I think we leave this today, which is so wonderful, which is brain and your language, because language is a kinesthetic mode of movement, and your tongue and motor movement was used and being used as you're listening, because it's actual, that's the motor movement, and that motor movement is patterned, and this is a language to you understanding something, you see. And so language itself is patterned motor movement, that's for sure. And every single thing is about leadership itself, of course. And brain function relating to leadership, and function being functional, it's something sort of sustainable. Yes, so it's like I would say, brain and function are amazing, in behavior too, because it's all one. That's what I was saying. So behavior causes neurotransmitters.
All right, everybody, remember to subscribe. Also, I'd like to say for everybody, start your day with a smile and a laugh. All right, Dr. Jubb, take us out.